From MTN News, this is Montana This Morning.
Good Monday morning. It's 6 o'clock. Welcome to Montana This Morning. I'm Victoria Hill. Thank you so much for kicking off your day and the week with us. And look who woke up early to join us. Ed's here in for Miller as he spends some time with his family down in Georgia.
That's right.
Back.
I don't know if his timing was great because they got a chance of some stronger storms developing down there this week, but he's kind of used to that. And we're going to pick up a little bit with some wind across the eastern plains for today. Start off with how things looked for us yesterday. 66 was the high at the airport, little shy of average. But once the sun broke through in the afternoon, the temperatures just moved right up. But so did the winds by the time we got later in the day. So we picked up 0.06 of an inch of moisture early and then started to pick up the stronger winds as we got into the afternoon. This morning we got a pretty sky at 48 degrees and the winds are light, but that'll change as the morning goes on, especially by this afternoon. We could be looking at wind gusts to around 40 miles an hour. Temperatures in southern Montana and northern Wyoming are in the 40s to low 50s this morning. There's still some showers around and the winds are strong around the Livingston area, but from Billings towards the east, they're generally less than 15 miles per hour. So the day planner for today, we'll look for those temperatures to warm up, hitting the 60s to around 70 by later in the day. And so while wind highlights the weather, brothers highlight the day today, National Brothers Day.
Do you have any brothers, Ed?
I have an older brother and a younger brother.
Older.
So I'm the middle guy.
Ooh, that's tough, right?
Yeah. I'm the peacemaker, though. That's my job.
What are their names? What are your brothers' names?
Mike is my older brother and Jeff is my younger brother.
I was hoping it was Ned and Ted and
so,
Ed. That would be really cool.
Ned, Ed, and Ted. Ed and Eddie.
Yeah, there you go. All right. Well, hopefully you can reach out and say hey, tell them they're appreciated, and then I will get on to the news.
Okay, thanks.
Getting us started this Monday morning, today 2,200 National Guard troops will begin leaving the U.S. Capitol. The Guard's mission to protect the Capitol following the January 6th riots officially ended on Sunday. The Pentagon announced an extension of their presence had not been requested. Security of the Capitol will be turned over to Capitol Police. The Lieutenant General who managed the security review following the riots said the Capitol will remain closed to the general public due to the strain on the police force. Lawmakers made some progress trying to come up with a proposal to help fix the nation's infrastructure. Republican and Democratic senators on the Senate Environment and Public Works Committee reached an agreement over the weekend. The proposal would increase funding for highways, roads, and bridges by 34% over 5 years. The proposal set the baseline funding at $300 billion. The agreement follows President Biden's offer to trim his infrastructure proposal to $1.7 trillion. House Republicans introduced their own version with a price tag of $400 billion. Now to the latest on COVID-19. The CDC says most fully vaccinated Americans no longer need to be tested for the virus, even if exposed to an infected person. Health officials say those who are fully vaccinated face minimal risk of developing serious illness or passing it along to others. Coronavirus cases are at their lowest in nearly a year, largely due to the effectiveness of the vaccines. Health officials say a new concern about heart inflammation in kids who've received the shot, something they say is extremely rare and very treatable, shouldn't discourage anyone from getting inoculated. CBS's Laura Podesta has more.
The 7-day average for new coronavirus cases in the U.S. is less than 30,000, about a tenth of what it was at the January peak. These Massachusetts high schoolers can thank the vaccine for their senior prom.
I believe it was 71% of our seniors as of Monday have been vaccinated.
In 9 states, at least 70% of adults are partially vaccinated, but in 10 others, mostly in the South, less than half have gotten 1 dose.
We've all been concerned about this new variant.
British health officials found the vaccines are effective against a variant first discovered in India, which is circulating in the U.S.
The message for everybody watching this, which comes from this data, is that getting the second jab is vital.
Epidemiologist Dr. Arthur Reingold says vaccinating new people now requires chasing them down.
Going to community centers, going to farmers markets, whatever it is, but going to where the people are.
The CDC is investigating some rare cases of heart inflammation among vaccinated teens and young adults.
These are complications that were not totally unexpected, but are very, very rare and manageable. Whereas I can't emphasize it enough, the virus can be deadly.
The health agency has not found more cases than expected in the general population and still encourages everyone 12 and older to get vaccinated. Laura Podesta, CBS News.
The CDC says the complications were more common in males than females and showed up about 4 days after the second dose of the Moderna and Pfizer vaccines. Tomorrow, the family of George Floyd will meet with President Biden to mark the 1-year anniversary of his death. President Biden met with family last June before Floyd's funeral. He also spoke to the family after a jury convicted former officer Derek Chauvin for Floyd's murder. Family members held a protest and rally over the weekend to speak out against police violence. And while police reforms have been enacted in various states, nothing so far has been able to pass Congress. As Washington continues to negotiate police reform, what is the impact of all these changes having on police officers? Here's reporter Joe St. George with a closer look.
The murder of George Floyd 1 year ago has changed a lot in this country. Murals have gone up, police reform enacted, and while Congress hasn't passed anything yet, at least 140 state laws have changed since George Floyd's murder, according to the National Conference of State Legislatures.
I think across the country that we're seeing nationally a decline in those applying.
Colonel Patrick Callahan leads the New Jersey State Police, one of the largest departments on the East Coast, and says while the protests have resulted in some common sense reforms like making sure bad cops don't get jobs elsewhere,
I don't think I could stand here and say that no reform is needed.
It's also resulted in a decline of men and women wanting to be police officers.
This is a historically low application process for us.
In a typical year in New Jersey, there are anywhere between 10 to 15,000 applications to join the state police. This past year, just 3,600. The colonel doesn't blame the drop entirely on all of this police reform talk, but it's part of it.
People say it to me all the time, oh, you couldn't pay me enough to do that job.
What's happening in New Jersey is happening across the country. According to the Police Executive Research Forum, there is a 63% decrease nationwide in applying to become a police officer. More early retirements are being reported too. All of this on the minds of lawmakers on Capitol Hill as they try to negotiate police reform. President Biden wanted it done by the anniversary of George Floyd's death. That won't be happening. But while a decline in being a police officer is being felt in many police departments and by many police unions, it's not being felt everywhere. This is Barnegat, New Jersey.
We're at the Jersey Shore.
Chief Keith Germain says while other police chiefs are struggling to find officers, he's not.
We're an anomaly there.
He recently had 4 openings and received 400 applicants. A big reason the seaside town pays patrolmen around $130,000 a year. The high pay giving him flexibility to hire only the best and brightest. And he's seeing more city officers interested in the suburban life.
Many of those applicants were NYPD, New York City Police Department, Philly PD. You have to pay them well to get them in the door.
Still, though, Chief Germain is keeping an eye on Washington. While he isn't having problems recruiting officers now, he says if some police reforms are too drastic, he will.
You are simply creating an environment where police officers are going to be very hesitant to take action.
Still, though, whatever Congress or state governments decide to enact, both of these officers say their departments will be there.
People are still going to call 911.
In fact, Colonel Callahan believes this period of uncertainty may just result in the best police force this country's ever had.
I think back to the greatest generation and when they came back from World War II and dug their heels in and built up America after World War II. I think right now is that opportunity too.
In Trenton, New Jersey, I'm Joe St. George.
Thank you, Joe. Now we go to Gaza, where Secretary of State Antony Blinken says the territory is in a grave humanitarian situation following the 11-day conflict between Israel and Hamas militants. Hundreds were killed, most of them Palestinians. Blinken is expected to travel to the region this week. The U.S. has pledged support to help rebuild the territory. CBS's Holly Williams is there.
Hamas celebrated the ceasefire with a victory parade. They govern the Gaza Strip and are classed by the US as a terrorist organisation. The conflict has helped bolster their image as the defenders of the Palestinian cause. But the people of Gaza bore the brunt of this conflict, and they're still sifting through the wreckage of splintered homes and lives. This used to be the Gaza International Hotel.
So this was the lobby.
Owned by Afaf Abu Jabbar and her family, they built the business up over 25 years. Until an Israeli airstrike targeted the multi-storey building just next door, shattering the hotel.
I don't want to cry, but when I saw this, I'm very cried in my heart.
Israel is also claiming victory, saying it killed over 200 militants. But 12 civilians in Israel were killed by rockets fired from Gaza, and some in the country are sceptical. Gonen Ben Yitzhak is a former Israeli intelligence officer. Hamas are war criminals, he says, but he blames Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu for igniting the conflict and told us Israel's policies have strengthened Hamas.
And I think to myself, what would have happened if I would live in Gaza? At least I would go to the border and throw stones, maybe become a terrorist, because nobody gives me any hope. Nobody gives me any future.
A Hamas official told us he hoped the ceasefire would hold, but that if there were more Israeli provocations, quote, "we're not responsible for the next escalation."
Thank you, Holly. And now on to much lighter news. Back here in the U.S., Phil Mickelson made history at the PGA Championship Sunday, becoming the oldest major champion in history. It was the 50-year-old lefty's sixth career major victory, making him the first PGA Tour player to win tournaments 30 years apart. Mickelson called the victory slightly unnerving, but exceptionally awesome. Montana is getting some more Hollywood action after Alec Baldwin's visit, with two more longtime stars working in the Treasure State. Four-time Academy Award nominee Ed Harris is directing The Plowman, which stars Academy Award winner Robert Duvall, Garrett Hedlund, and Amy Madigan. The movie, about a strange friendship between a haunted young deputy sheriff and a notorious old murderer, was adapted from a 2014 novel by Great Falls native Kim Zuppin. Crews were filming at Fort Benton's courthouse on Sunday, but scenes are expected to be shot throughout the Missouri Breaks area, and there's no word yet on a release date.